What's going on, guys? Welcome back to GTA 5. Today we're going to be checking out all three of the unreleased drift tuning cars here. We got the Jester Classic, the old school Fudo, and the Cheburek all ready to go. Now these are of course courtesy of my man H1 the Car Plug, who's about 7 subs off 1K at the time of recording this video, so if you guys haven't checked out his channel, make sure you do that, link in the description down below. At the end of today's video, we are going to be ranking these cars from favorite to least favorite, and I think that just about does it. So let's get over to the beach and get some slides. Alright guys, here we are, starting it off with the Jester Classic. We actually already posted a video on this car where we did some testing with it, and I think the big thing with this car is that it's fast. It has a ton of power, and honestly, it's probably my favorite drift car that I own out of all the cars in the game. I have one of every drift tuning car, I believe. I might be short like a Fudo GTX or something like that, but for the most part, I do have every car in the game, and honestly, I find myself just coming back to this car more and more. I think in today's shootout, it's gonna be pretty tough to beat, if I'm being honest with you guys. I just love having all this usable power. Honestly, it doesn't feel like there's a ton of grip, and it feels like there's plenty of weight to throw around too, so I am falling behind a little bit on H1. I'm gonna try and get back to his door a little bit here. There we go. Nice tight tandems. Plenty of usable power in this car, like I said. H1's pretty fast in that thing, so I'm gonna have to double down a little bit here. I think he's pumping the brakes for me a little bit to catch his door. And there we go, guys. This thing is so sick, so much fun. I will leave a link in the description down below to the video that we did testing this car out. Like I said, we did some testing on this thing and found that it was pretty damn fast, and I can definitely recommend it if you guys haven't picked one of these up yet. I know they can be a little bit tough to get your hands on where they are unreleased, but if you do have the chance to pick one of these things up, I definitely recommend it. Can't wait till this thing gets released. Hopefully it's the first. I don't know if they're going to be drip feeding out these cars week to week or if they're all going to come out on the same week. Honestly, I'm pretty shocked that none of them have come out yet. But that is my thoughts on the Superman. Probably my favorite drift tuning car out of all of them so far. Super fast, plenty of usable power, not a ton of grip, which I think is actually a pretty good thing, and just an overall stellar car to drive. All right, guys, up next here we have the Fudo. Honestly, I've only driven this car a little bit. This is pretty much my first impression on it, and off the bat here, it feels pretty similar to the GTX. It might have a little more power to it. It's been a while since I've driven a Fudo GTX, though. I do have H1 here. I don't know, H1, have you driven a GTX recently?
Not really.
I wonder if they just copy-pasted the physics from the GTX and put it on this car, or if it's maybe a little different.
From what I remember, I think they did just copy it a little bit, but I think this Fudo is a little quicker, I want to say, off the bat.
Yeah, it does feel plenty powerful, honestly. Oh no, as I hit the powerful right into the pole.
I think that's just these new drift tuning cars. I think they're just a little more powerful, which is honestly nice to see.
Yeah, I was wondering if maybe they made them a little more powerful so that people were incentivized to buy the new drift tuning cars. They're like, oh, look at these ones, they're faster. Although, not to spoil the next car, I feel like the Cheburek is not very powerful, but I think that's kind of the point. This car, though, is super dialed, super locked in. It does feel a little soft. I feel like the suspension's kind of rolly and bouncy, whereas the Super feels a little bit more planted and solid, but this one is super fun. I think if you guys are into the Fudo GTX and just need something new or different, I kind of want to. Do you have a GTX?
I do.
Do you mind swapping out to that? We'll do a little AB between this and the GTX.
Ooh, sure.
All right, so H1's got his GTX here with the drift tuning. We're gonna tandem with this thing and probably hop into it as well for a little AB. Same car, one's a coupe, one's a hatchback, so you would think they would handle pretty similarly, and it looks like so far they do. Really nice doors between the two cars here. If the GTX is a little slower, it's probably the better car to have in the lead, so we'll get a few laps here with H1 and see how the regular Fudo stacks up here, the OG Fudo. Really happy with my build, by the way. We got this livery on here, some nice Cosmos, white paint, typical NTNS choices, but it ended up working out pretty well for us. I'd love to get like a Pounder's plate or something on this eventually as well, maybe a Yank plate. We'll see what kind of gets available as the drift tuning drops. But it looks like these cars are pretty close. You want to swap cars real quick, H1? All right, let's see here. This car feels lower to the ground and like there's less suspension travel for sure. That car feels more like bobbly and boaty. I actually think I prefer the GTX. I think it's smoother. It's like easier to control.
The main thing in the lead for me in the GTX was when I was using the brakes to slow down a little bit, it felt like it wanted to bog a little more than this thing does. So I think power-wise, this thing probably has it.
Yeah, like the power to grip ratio, I feel that, yeah. Yep, this car feels a little bit underpowered compared to that one for sure, but I think it feels a little bit more planted and solid, like smoother for sure too in the suspension.
Definitely, yeah.
So I feel like that's really up to you guys if you're in the market for a Fudo, whether you pick up the GTX or the original Fudo. I think that OG Fudo is probably going to do you a little better if you're looking for something a little bit more powerful, spins tires a little easier, sorry for the bump there, and I think the GTX is going to do a little bit better if you're looking for something a little bit lower powered and stable, but clearly the GTX isn't having too much trouble keeping up with that OG Fudo either. Go ahead and rip it. Let's see if I can keep up in the GTX.
Oh, don't you dare.
Oh, brother. Oh, no. Poor guy did a starfish. All right, here we go. Full speed run. Yeah, that thing's faster. Yeah, I'm struggling a little bit. But definitely a difference between the two Fudos nonetheless. H1's just terrorizing the public here today, but I do think there is a pretty sizable difference between the two cars, guys. So if you already have a GTX and you're not really willing to pick up a Fudo because you might think they're the same car, they're definitely not. But that is the OG Fudo. We're gonna move on to the Cheburek next, and then we're gonna rank the three. And there's the final car on the list here, guys. We got my Cheburek. This one's pretty much just like an OEM plus vibe. I tried to make this look as like stock as possible, I guess, for like a Lada kind of vibe. We do have the Benny's wheels on here and the yank plate. Shout out to H1 for the hookup on this thing. But we're gonna get driving this thing here at the beach as well. Now you'll notice right off the rip, this thing is definitely the slowest out of the three cars, and until you drive it, I don't know if you'll really be able to tell this on video, but it feels like it's the most rear-wheel drive out of the three as well. I believe H1 said that our buddy Stevie Wonderkid, which if you guys aren't subscribed to Stevie, definitely check out his channel, link in the description down below as well. He did some research on this thing. I can't even get this thing going, man. I'm absolutely super slow in this thing. But he did some research on this thing and said that it was 95% rear-wheel drive, 5% front. So it's still all-wheel drive, but 95% of the power goes to the rear wheels. Are those numbers correct, H1?
I believe it's 97 rear and then, oh wait, no, was it? Wait, let me look again. Okay, so it's 92.5 to the rear and then 7.5 to the front.
Okay, so if we go up to a pole here, you guys will see, if you push it, the front wheels don't even spin. It's just the rear wheels. So it does feel pretty rear wheel drive, which makes it a little bit trickier to drive. You have to be careful with your counter steering, and it feels like it doesn't hold necessarily quite as much angle as some of the other all-wheel drive cars. If you guys are unaware, the drift tuning cars that are existing in the game already are all-wheel drive. The front wheels will spin if you drive them up to the wall. Actually, I don't even know that for a fact. We should probably fact check that before I tell the YouTube channel that that's the case, but nonetheless, this car is the most rear-wheel drive out of all of them for sure, and as you can tell, we're struggling to drive these things. I don't know if they're necessarily going to be the best cars for going out and getting tandem clips or joining FD competitions, but they are a lot of fun. It's definitely nice to have a little bit of a change of pace from the typical drift tuning vibe, and it does feel super rewarding when you're finally able to hop on your friends' doors. And so I definitely recommend checking this thing out. It's a pretty cheap car too. I think these things are like 100,000 or like 140,000 or something like that. So definitely a cheap option if you guys are looking to get drifting without having to break the bank. So you can definitely check these things out. But if you're looking for the best car on the list, I don't know if I'm gonna recommend the Cheburek. All right, guys, and the favorite for both of us today is gonna be the Jester Classic or the Mark IV. This car is just so good. I can't wait for all you guys to be able to try these out for yourselves. Definitely just a super fun car, plenty of power, and just a ton of fun to drive. For me, I think the second place has to be the original Fudo. That thing is also super fun to drive. A little soft for my preferences, but definitely still a ton of fun. And then I think my third place is gonna be the Cheburek. Just a little bit of a struggle to drive compared to some of the other cars, and I feel like it's lacking a little bit in power as well. How about you, H1? What's your order of operations here?
All right, so I personally put the Cheburek in the second spot just because I like the fact that it's the most rear-wheel drive car out of all of them. Even though it is the slowest car on the list, I think if you give it enough practice and time, I think it's gonna be a decent car. And also, it's just super cheap. It's the second cheapest drift tuning car out of all of them.
What's the cheapest, do you know?
It is the Fudo. It will be the Fudo.
Oh, the OG Fudo?
Yep, the OG Fudo.
Oh, man.
It is the cheapest drift tuning car.
I think that would be the one I would personally recommend if you guys are looking to get into a drift tuning car on a budget, but like any drift tuning setup, people have differences of opinions, and that's totally fine. Different people are gonna like different cars and different setups, so if your friends have them, definitely try them out and see what you like best. So guys, I think that is gonna do it. If you guys made it this far in the video, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you guys a ton. If you have had a chance to drive any of these cars, definitely let me know what you think of them down in the comments, and if you haven't had a chance to drive these yet, definitely let me know which one you're most excited to check out. Once again, guys, if you made it this far in the video, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you guys a ton. Be sure to leave a like down below if you did enjoy the video and subscribe for more just like it. I'll catch y'all in the next one. Peace.